My guest today is Tiara Ross. Tiara is currently running for Columbus City Council on the open seat for District 7. Tiara's name, along with Jesse Vogel's, will be the two names you see on the ballot on the November 4th election. She's an attorney and has been working for city attorneys at Klein's office since around 2018. In that office, she serves as the Deputy Chief of Zone Initiative and General Counsel for the city's Department of Inspector General. In this episode, we talk about her story, why she's running, the things she's seen firsthand in her role, and her thoughts on the future of Columbus in general. All that and more on this chronicle of the Columbus Chronicle. Thank you so much for coming on the pod and chatting with me. I'm so interested to talk about your story, everything going on right now, and just everything under the sun. But before we start off, who are you? For people who don't
Yeah.
know.
I just am a Columbus girl, and I think I'm sure we'll get into this. There's a narrative out there that I'm not, but I am. I was born in Columbus to a single mother. She was 19 when she had me, and but she was a PK. Do you know what a PK is? Okay, a preacher's kid. Anytime you hear PK, a preacher's kid, which I essentially am. But when you're a preacher's kid, my granddad served this community for like 51 years as pastors. My grandparents, I guess, as pastors of the Tridestone Baptist Church. It's in a small neighborhood called Milo Grogan, which is in District 7. I'm sure you are familiar with Milo Grogan. Has a long history here in the city, the history of disinvestment. When you think about like the King Lincoln Bronzeville community and Milo Grogan and how the freeway kind of cut right in the middle of it, disconnecting folks, generally Black and brown folks who were living there at the time, from Central Core Resources. And so Milo was literally this small community of folks. And back in the day, and I'm not that old, but I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember when a lot of the members of the church that I grew up in were actually members of the neighborhood around the church, which is a little different than what you see now. You see a lot of folks kind of just traveling from one side of the city to the next to commune with their faith community. But back then, there were just a lot of members of the church that actually lived in Milo Grogan. And my grandfather, so my grandparents, I ended up moving in with them at probably around the age of 6 years old. Raising a child by yourself can be difficult. It was very difficult for my mother, and my grandparents were so kind to me and to her as well, just kind of took over the mantle of raising me. And so my grandfather would go to the church every day, and he would just drop me at one of the the parishioners' homes, and I would be there basically all day until he was done doing what he needed to do at the church. So Milo really became kind of my village, the village of folks that raised me. And we'll talk a little bit about this, but you've got, folks that have passed away since then, but even also, just the inability to age in place in that community because of how prices have increased. So there are folks that now live on the north side, on the east side, way far away from the Milo Brogan community, because of the affordability crisis that we are seeing, particularly those neighborhoods that are very, very close to downtown, that, back in the day weren't as sexy and now are really sexy because they're becoming walkable communities, and you can get to the short north really quick, or you can get to downtown really quickly. But just seeing kind of the spar and seeing the spread of that neighborhood and how closely it was connected to our church is a little disheartening. But that was really a part of literally me. The fabric of how I was raised was in the church around a faith-based community. We used to feed the homeless literally every week. It was called the Bread of Life Ministry. And it became one of my favorite ministries to kind of help with. I would go help serve at like 5 years old, just understanding that everybody doesn't live the same type of life, and the benefit of being able to help folks and benevolence back into your community really has been ingrained in my heart and in my life since I can remember. And I am so grateful for the church and for my faith community, even more than just service to the community, also just learning how to speak in front of a crowd, right? Because the people didn't play back in the day. My grandmother, church aunties, church uncles. If you had to read the scripture, there was no reading of the scripture. You were reciting that thing. That means you committed it to your memory. You had to speak loud, clear, slow, so everyone could hear you. I mean, everything was just done in excellence, and it really taught me so much of the skill set that I have today. I learned growing up in the church. And so that is really just a huge part of my upbringing. Again, my grandparents raised me, so they lived closer to the east, closer to Columbus East Side. So I went to Old Orchard Alternative School until the 5th grade, and then moved further east, which led me to go to Reynoldsburg Public Schools. Graduated from Reynoldsburg High School, then came back to OSU for undergrad. Graduated from undergrad in 2009, and then graduated from Warwick College of Law in 2012. I decided I wanted to be a lawyer in high school. So we had these thesis classes. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 30.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So a little bit younger than me. We had a thesis opportunity to take thesis classes in high school, and you could take things like thesis in history or thesis in law. And so I was like, okay, let's do thesis in law. My grandfather loved Law and Order, so growing up, I would literally watch Law and Order every day. And then you can imagine because you have SVU, you have all of the different series of Law and Order could literally take up your entire day. So if you wasn't like studying for a sermon or at the church, we were watching either Cowboys and Indians or Law and Order. And so I'm like, okay, let's just try it out. Ended up getting a really good grade, developed a really strong relationship with my teacher. Our final exam was actually being a part of a mock trial competition. We ended up going to like states. I ended up getting us some awards, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm good at this. Maybe this is the thing that I will do to give back to my community. Because it was, no matter what you're going to do, you got to find a way to give back. That was literally the one thing my grandparents, one, you need to work, and you need to find a way to give back to your community. So I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. At that time, it was really cool to not be in the city of Columbus. I was like, let me find a school outside of the city of Columbus. I applied to all of these schools for undergrad, including Howard and Hampton and all of the places. Got accepted to all of those places. But at the time, now there's a lot of influx in donations and in, building kind of the financial foundation that you need in the university to thrive. A lot of HBCUs are thriving, which I literally love to see. But when I was applying for schools, it was not that way. So I got an acceptance letter from Howard, and Howard's like, you got to pay $300 to hold your seat. And so I was like, okay. So I'm thinking about it. I got an acceptance letter from OSU. And in that same letter, oh, by the way, you're a moral scholar. We're going to offer you a full ride. And so essentially, my grandparents really had already raised their children. They had made this huge sacrifice to also raise me. And so this for me was a moment that I could kind of give back to them and say, I got this scholarship. You don't have to pay for school. I'm going to stay here and go to OSU. And so that's honestly, honest to God, how I got to Ohio State University, one of the best experiences of my life. I'm glad that I went, but it certainly was not my first choice. But you can't tell me that at this point I don't bleed scarlet and gray. I absolutely do. Um, and went on to undergrad. I majored in psychology and strategic communications. My second major was literally a fluke. I went to my guidance counselor my junior year. I was like, hey, what credits do I need? She's like, you can have a double major if you want it. You got two more classes that you can take. So ended up picking up that second major. Certainly didn't do it with intention, but the type of classes that you would think a lawyer would like, right? You learn about strategies for communication, strategies for PR, government relation, things like that. And so graduated with a BA in psychology, and then went on to Moritz College of Law. As you can imagine, in 2008 was a big time for the United States of America, and also just a big time for the economy too. I graduated in 2012. It wasn't really great, but it was also the same time that President Obama was literally going after the too big to fail banks. So we had a lot of drug cartels, we had a lot of terrorist financing that you would see, and so Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan Chase, all of those places were being investigated and found to have not had enough compliance, essentially. So they're hiring all these lawyers to really beef up their compliance strategy. So I ended up doing some anti-money laundering investigation for Chase for a few years right out of law school. Actually worked for the firm I summered at for a few months right out of law school, and then moved on to Chase and worked there, ended up supporting private equity and hedge fund clients in the private bank for about 4 years, and, Brexit happened during that time, so I'm sure you remember that. Everybody was freaking out. It was like, "What are we gonna do?" And so I got sent to Edinburgh, Scotland, to help JP Morgan with operations, to try to figure out, what we were gonna do. There was a lot of backlog, just a lot of things happening to prepare for what Brexit could have done. Now, obviously, in retrospect, JP Morgan's doing just fine, so is Chase. But I was in Scotland, nonetheless. Wonderful experience, met some really, really great people. I'm itching to get back to Scotland, like, really wanna go back. Wonderful culture. Got very sick because you experience 4 seasons in a day, every day. But the folks there, they knew exactly what to give to me. I got better in, like, a day, maybe less than a day. I was feeling better. So, but I say that to say, in Scotland, I got hit up in my DMs. I always say this, it's so funny to folks, by City Attorney Zach Klein. And, we were Facebook friends at the time. He messages me and he's like, "Hey, I think I got an opportunity for you." And of course, I'm mortified because I'm like, "I'm in Scotland. What am I going to do?" And I had committed to being in Scotland for a full month. And I believe, if I can remember correctly, I was turning 30. I turned 30 years old in Scotland. Um, and it was right at the beginning of the trip. So I knew I wouldn't be back for another like 3.5, 4 weeks. And I had told him that I wanted to transition back into the private sector because, as great as working for JP Morgan and the richest of the rich, they have this category called ultra wealthy. And you're like, what is that? Right? You're like, these folks have no care in the world from a financial perspective. But still, I mean, you would think that they knew how to like fill out tax documents or just basic stuff. They don't. So there was a need there. Just wasn't the need that I was trying to fill for, the rest of my career. And so, folks would always ask you, like, every politician, a good one, will come to the church. And we had a fairly large church. So I saw Zach a lot, particularly, obviously, when it was time to, run for election. And he had been on city council first and then became president of city council. And then he was running for county prosecutor. And he would always say to me every time I saw him, like, "Hey, let me know what you need. Let me know what you need." And I would always just be so kind of taken aback by his mammoth self, both literally and literally and figuratively, right? Like, obviously awesome professional, big guy, and I just never would have the words to say. And I finally, like, built up enough courage to say, "You know what? I really am interested in moving back into, the public sector. I want to offer my services to communities that don't have a voice and be able to help folks." And so I told him that right around the time he was running for county prosecutor. I remember him losing that race, and then I remember when Rick Pfeiffer kinda tapped him to be city attorney. He becomes city attorney in 2017, and 2018 is when he reaches out to me about this new position. He's like, "I think it's perfect. It's like half in court, half in the community, and it's the team that I serve as deputy chief of now." I'm talking a lot, so you can cut me off.
No, 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 this is you like, I usually ask, like, to tell me about your early years and your years at college, and
Okay.
you covered all of that.
Alright.
Yeah.
So he goes, "I think it's a cool opportunity. It's a balance of both community and being in the courtroom." And I'm like, "Okay, great." So I come back and, I interview for the job. It was called the Zone Initiative at the time. And as you can imagine, Judge Jiza Page had just transitioned from the Zone Initiative to council. At the time, Shayla Favor was on the team. Judge Berlaza was on the team. And, I meet with Steve Dunbar, who is the section chief now, and I think he hates me. I'm like, I bombed this interview. I'm not gonna get the job." I get the job, and Steve and I talk. We go to lunch, and he has become literally one of my favorite people in all of the city of Columbus. And, I think we really connected on just care for people. and trying to use this little universe that we have influence over to move the needle on behalf of folks. And it was 2018, and I would probably venture to tell you at the time we were in a housing crisis already. But it wasn't like politically expedient to talk about it, but you could see it. I was in neighborhoods like Colonial Village, neighborhoods like Wedgwood, like South Park. And also, I was getting, you know, cases from landlords that seemed to be incentivized by the fact that there wasn't enough housing. So folks are paying their hard-earned money to folks, and that money is not being poured back into the property. Um, and I think that environment can only be incentivized by the fact that I need a place to stay. You have one. I have no other option. And so now I just have to deal, like, that's where I have to go and I have to deal with, right? What is BS, quite frankly, and unacceptable. So we're in this space, this weird space. And Steve would tell me, like, it's also a really cool opportunity to advance like safety in neighborhoods too, because we also file lawsuits against property owners who have drug houses. So we are on Martin right now, in the middle of Franklinton. And I will tell you that this area of town, we probably see the most drug houses come through our shop. And I'm not talking by a little bit. I'm talking probably um, twice as much as we see in other parts of the town that come through our shop. But it was a cool way to almost have a plan B, right? I don't think it solves the totality of the issue, but I've talked to so many neighbors who have lived next to a drug house that when you shut it down, the type of reprieve that that neighborhood or even that street gets, um, is incredible, right? Because you have kids, parents are scared to let their kids play in the street. We had one drug house that we shut down that was right across from a park. Folks were scared, literally scared to walk their children in the park because you never know what could happen. And so it's just been a really, really cool journey to be in community and and to be able to, like, I've shut down a drug house, I've shut down a an after hour club and left it less than 24 hours. Like, you literally, like, the police will be like, this is a mess, and you would see it. And I would go, like, to a police precinct, 3rd shift at, like, 9 p.m. and sit down with a bunch of patrol officers and literally write up the whole investigation and the complaint. And the next day we would get before the judge, we would have a TRO hearing, and we would get the order to shut the place down. So really just cool, cool work that I've been able to do
And
at the
see,
city attorney's office and see the direct impact. So it has just been the honor of my life to be able to serve in this capacity, to be able to serve Columbus in this capacity. When I first started on the zone initiative, I was assigned to the zone 2, so the police zone 2. And I might ask you for a tissue here soon because
no,
I
no,
got.
go, yeah. We could pause real
You
quick, and
want
I
to
can.
pause?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll run
Let me do a
downstairs. I
tissue
got
so my
some
nose doesn't
tissues.
start
Yeah,
running.
no worries.
Um,
Be right back.
all right. So when I first started on the zone initiative, I was assigned to zone 2. So in Columbus, the division of police splits up the city into, historically, it had always been 5 police zones. Recently, with the new police chief, Chief Bryant, added a 6th zone, and it was an attempt to ensure people could get faster responses to calls for service. Essentially, it was just the way that the division kind of organizes personnel. So zone 2 was the east side of Columbus. It was the far east side of Columbus, which was great because that was literally the side of town that I grew up on. So think about the Bryce Road corridor when it was booming, Refugee Road, Eastland Mall. I'm like, you're not from Columbus if you don't remember Northland Mall and Eastland Mall, like all of those places. And I'll tell you something funny about Eastland. And also the south sides of Columbus. So actually the parts of District 7 that are south side. And so you're thinking Southern Orchards, you're thinking Reed Hozak, that area, Parsons Avenue. Both of those areas were in police zone 2. And I handled everything from run-of-the-mill code violations, literally all the way up to drug houses, large multifamily apartment complexes that could be dealing with a combination of both derelict conditions and also violent crime. And it was a cool opportunity because the city of Columbus only finds out about these things through citizen complaints and or police investigations. And so our largest client really is the actual citizen itself who's complaining, or the division of police, or code enforcement if they were going out and would see things. And so literally spent the first 4.5 years doing all of the work on that side of town. Anything that came from that side of town by way of nuisance complaints or activity, I would address through filing lawsuits. They're civil lawsuits against property owners to try to correct. And spent a lot of time with area commissions, spent a lot of time with civic associations, and really just talking to people. And after Sawyer Towers, so there was in the winter of 2023, um, we had to displace hundreds of people from Sawyer Towers. At the time, it was called Latitude 525, but for years it was called Sawyer Towers, and it's on Sawyer Boulevard. Everybody who knows the place calls it Sawyer Towers. They're like, "We have no idea what Latitude 525 is." And, I remember having, um, talked to Steve, our section chief, and we knew that we kept getting complaints about the mechanicals of the buildings, and not a lot of them, but we would hear it anecdotally in the community. And, at the time, we only had, like, 9 outstanding code violations that had come to, code enforcement. So and this was in the aftermath of Colonial Village, which I'll tell you about as well. We were trying to approach the lawsuit differently. So for Colonial Village, which was at the time that I filed that lawsuit, probably the second largest apartment complex in the city of Columbus, on the east side of Columbus, on Livingston Avenue, notorious for violent crime and just derelict conditions. But we sent code enforcement in for like 4 days with police and fire, and they wrote up everything. So by the time we had a complaint, the complaint was 30 pages long with 400, 500 open outstanding code violations, which you can imagine, though, could take a while to get through from a legal perspective, particularly if property owners have an attorney and they're hell bent on slowing down the process, right, on behalf of their client. So we said, all right, well, instead of waiting till we have all of that, let's just try filing the lawsuit. So we filed the lawsuit. We only had 9 open complaints, so we kept hearing anecdotal stories about how bad it was there. But as you can imagine, everybody has property loss. You don't want anybody busting into your house without the appropriate, right, permission to do so. So it wasn't like we could just send code enforcement. We needed a court order to be able to do that, and we needed to prove to the judge that the conditions were bad enough that you should let us go and inspect every unit. Well, with 9 open violations, you're not gonna be able to do that. So I'm working with legal aid, and legal aid would tell us, like, "Hey, we're getting complaints from our clients." But again, legal aid can only give us 9 clients that were like, "It's bad. We promise you it's bad." Um, and so the judge, to her credit, was like, "That's great. City, you need some more evidence." So we filed a lawsuit. We asked for a full inspection. The judge shuts us down. And I'm talking to this one legal aid lawyer who had most of the clients at the time. And he's like, "It's bad, Tiara. We gotta we have to try to figure something out." And I remember it was getting cold, and I was like, "Well, if it's bad, like you're telling me it's bad, we at least need to try to figure out a response, right?" So let me pull together some of the folks that I've worked with in the administration over time. So brought in Department of Development, brought in our fire department, brought in our police department, and some social services. So at the time, we had social workers, and they were reporting to me. Very, very cool, 'cause they just check your work. As lawyers, we think, particularly public sector lawyers, we think everything we do is right. You're like, "We're saving the world." They're like, eh, not sure." So they're there to just kinda check our mindset, and we're like, "All right, so we have all these folks, but we probably need folks that can help." Really just with even just talking to folks, right? Connecting them to resources, connect that bridge. So we're all talking about what happens, um in the event we get into winter and things start to break. Um, and sure enough, Christmas Eve, everything broke. Um, But because we had started talking about it, like, we had the fire chief, he was already ready. Folks were on call, and we were able to put a response together that I believe truly saved people's lives. But then in retrospect, when you look at it, you're like, well, one, why do we already have this process in the first place? Why are we, the lawyers, at the center of trying to develop a crisis response? Um, and I'm telling you, like, I literally was out there, helped to set up the Dodge Rec Center. So the Dodge Rec Center was literally the emergency shelter
For all these
for
folks.
all of these folks who had nowhere else to go, um, had no family members that they could go stay with, and had to get out, right? And so it's literally Christmas Eve, the pipes burst, and everybody is like losing their mind because half the city is gone, they're on vacation, as you should, right? So we had very limited resources, so we partnered really quickly with the county. Um, County came in. I'm literally at Dodge Rec Center trying to write agreements to give the county the keys to a city building so that they could bring their mammoth resources to bear. And we're learning. So CSB is on site. We have the Red Cross which is on site, and luckily, like, the temperatures I think were low enough for Red Cross to provide some resources, but not low enough for them to stand up that effort. And so you had the county mobilizing, you had the city mobilizing. Um, we literally had to take groups of community members, elected officials, folks from my shop, which only a couple of us were here.
Yeah,
Um,
Christmas Eve. Look,
Literally that Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, that first week of the new year, um, walking people down 14, 15 flights of stairs. Some of them covered with sheets of ice. Um, Elevator was broke in one tower, the other tower, it looked like it was flooding, but it was literal water falling from the ceiling, and flooding the basement floor. And you had people in wheelchairs that were living on 16th and 17th floors of this building. Um, so just having to pull together that operation with code enforcement, with our fire department, with our division of police, and our division of police we're saying, like, you all need to be back. Like, these people are literally losing their home, and probably one of the worst times you could lose your home. I don't know that police being at the front of this, it works. We need to have, like, real people trying to help these folks, that can at least try to relate a little bit or show some empathy a little bit. Um, so we had literal, like, groups of community members knocking doors saying, "We gotta get you out of here. We have to get you out of here. What can we do to help you pack?" We had the animal shelter that was there because you know how folks are with their pets, okay? We Listen, some people were like, "That's cool. I'll be here with my cat, with my dog." Some was like, "With my 9 cats," right? So having them there was truly helpful to move the needle for folks who just didn't wanna leave. Um, it was probably one of the saddest times in my career, but also one of the most enlightening times in my career, to understand where we were as a city, how much we could work together, right, to help folks in their time of need, but also how much red tape we were able to immediately pull down in the moment of crisis. How many people qualified for the county's benefits, but were not accessing the county's benefits? So um, you almost had this, captive audience of people who we could offer resources to, who we maybe thought we already had connected in the system, but we're not in the system. Um, and just the amount of learning that we did while at the same time trying to walk people through crisis, walk people through a terrible time. But being able to use that to build this response, the same response we used when we had to move literal immigrant families out of Colonial Village that were somehow brought here, but certainly criminally placed there, in units that had been deemed uninhabitable. Having to move them, we would have never been able to move them as quickly And we would have never had that infrastructure but for what we did with Sawyer Towers. And so for me, those are moments I think about when I think about my why.
Yeah.
Those are communities I think about when I think about my why. And for me, think that we are in tough times. And a lot of people aren't seeing it or feeling it, right? But some people are really feeling it. And I just think we as a city are gonna have to do a lot of things that we as a city have not had to do or had to deal with. Our public school system is struggling. We have a federal government that's intent on divesting in public schools. And we know that public schools are literally what keeps community, right? If they fail, our children have no resource. The future of our city fails. The future of our communities fail. Um, the housing crisis, coupled on top of that, is literally causing people, to die. They're in places they shouldn't be. They're in places not fit for human habitation. They're on the street. And that's largely not fit for human habitation, at least here in Columbus, for 6 months out of the year. It's too cold to be outside. You should never not have a safe place to call home. Um, and I just think that we as the city are going to have to do some things differently. And it is going to require people who have walked through this in our city, who know how to navigate systems, to get results for people, and folks that can empathize with real issues that people are going through. Um, I think that it's not just a city of Columbus problem. I think you're seeing it all over the United States of America. And that's really why I decided to run. It's not that I'm not doing good work. I really love my job. I love the folks that I work for. Um, but I do think that, I'm in a position to be able to help more people. And I want to be able to help more people. And again, I'm a woman of faith. I believe wherever God calls me to, He will equip me to do it and to do it well. And I can only hope that in raising my hand to run, I am both inspiring folks, young people who look like me, who want to do this kind of work, to know that it's possible. But also, I can only hope that I'm able to help more people, by way of my career experience, my life experience, um, and what I'd be able to bring to the table.
So that brings us up to the present moment.
Yeah. Before you ask your question.
Yes. No, go for it. And it's a more of a long-winded question, so bear with me. Early voting has started. We're in the home stretch now. Talk to me about you talked to me about the decision why. You already did. But talk to me about what it's been like since entering that race and how you're feeling now that we're kind of in the home stretch of it.
Okay, how you're feeling is a loaded question because we have literal 7 sleeps away. I'm feeling everything, but I will tell you this race has been rewarding. It's been rewarding in a way because we've seen kind of democracy work itself out in the city of Columbus, in a way that we haven't seen, I think, in a few years. That's the rewarding part. I think that races are important because whenever you enter into a space like Columbus City Council, you should know the level of accountability that goes along with that. And I think that local politics is the most important.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
These folks are making decisions every day that literally could affect your life that same day or the next day. And when you go into an office like that, I do think that having a race, having a formidable opponent is important because it only prepares you better for stepping into that role. And the political me could tell you that I was already prepared and way more prepared than my opponent. But this process has prepared the both of us, I would say, even more than what we would have been had we not had to go through this process. So it's been rewarding in that. It's also been rewarding in the new people you meet on the campaign trail. the folks, again, who are inspired by you and you don't even know it. Folks who have been made better by your work that you weren't able to meet because sometimes you don't meet the real people affected by the things that you work on because you're paper pushing and filing motions and arguing in court, but you're arguing against a landlord or a corporate entity, and you're not necessarily seeing the folks' lives that you are helping. So meeting people who are like, "Do you remember when I called you? My elevator was broke and you made one call and I'm at my like," or when my mom's elevator was broke and I didn't know who to call and I finally reached you and you literally made one call and now I can get groceries up to my mom. Um, or just something as small as, you came out and spoke to us and educated us on so much that we had no idea about. Um, so that's been really, really cool. The folks that you meet, the folks who don't even know you but are excited that you're running, are sacrificing their time, their money. That is insane. That's still an insane phenomenon to me that someone would be like, "I want to give you my money. I don't even know if you're gonna win, but I want like I believe in that so much that I'm gonna give you my hard-earned money." It has just been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I think that it is also telling when you get into these types of races and in the world that we're in, there's still a lot of hate. There's still a lot of folks that are emboldened, um, and could care less about who you are or who your family is. So having to navigate that has also been interesting, but also having an opportunity to be unabashed and unafraid and bold and stand up for other people who are also going through that same thing. Because I had now have a platform to do that. So that's been really cool. Um, what else do I think about this? How do I feel right now? I'm very exhausted. I'm very tired. We have worked really, really hard, stayed up long nights. We are on track to have knocked thousands of doors. We have talked to thousands of people. I also still work a full-time job, still try to be, as active in community organizations as I can be. So it's hard. It's hard to do. So I am very tired, but, I'm excited. We're in the last sprint, so I feel like I'm on autopilot a little bit. And I'm really now just thinking about what does, like what does day 1 look like if I'm so blessed to receive the vote of the majority of folks from the city to be your next city council person? Just starting to think about what that next step looks like. I think I've been thinking about it because 'cause I'm just I guess that's the type of person that I am, but also, like, what does that look like? Right? What does this new life look like and how to prepare for that? In ways that you think you're prepared for, but running a race like this, you realize that maybe you're not as prepared as you thought you were. And just as a human being, like going literally thrusting yourself into the public light is a deeply personal experience that I don't think anyone has unless you've done it. Right? Like I can't explain it to you. You
I used
just
to work in TV, I get it.
there you go. You only know when you know. And they're just, folks feel a level of ownership over you that sometimes you just were like, wow, this is incredible. And I do think there's accountability there. I think some folks think it's ownership. I don't think it's that, but there is accountability. Um, I'm just excited. I'm excited to be able to serve. I always tell folks, you can't get rid of me one way or the other. I'll be serving, and be serving the city of Columbus for the very foreseeable future. It's been an honor.
Yeah.
It's been an honor and a privilege, and I'm excited about the opportunity to continue to do that.
Yeah, and I have questions about what in your mind, day 1 looks like, but I wanna hit on something you mentioned is you talked about, the accountability and just, like, everything that happens when you're running in a race, when you're in the public figure, and I remember early on, it was a report by the Rooster about the pay part, which I know you assumed at some point was gonna be brought up because I imagine it's brought up in every interview
Sure,
you're in,
sure, sure.
but kinda talk to that and kinda the story behind that.
So there were 2 stories. I think when I started to run, when I filed my petitions, there was a challenge to my residency, that we won because I don't I would have not done this if I didn't know that I could qualify to do it. Um, and I think that's what kind of started this narrative that I told you about at the beginning when I was just like, I am absolutely from here. I have very deep roots in the city of Columbus. You know, being raised by your grandparents, you literally have to go wherever they go. I didn't have an option or a choice to say, no, we should stay in Columbus. They're going to Reynoldsburg. They went to Reynoldsburg. But it didn't stop me from serving in the city of Columbus. It did not, I always worshiped in the city of Columbus, and I always stayed connected to community in the city of Columbus. It never that never stopped me from being connected to this community just because I may have slept in Reynoldsburg. And then after that, there was this entire breaking news about the parking tickets and my driving record, which I will admit is terrible. I didn't have a great driving record. Now, a lot of the stuff that was brought up from years ago, I will tell you that prior to this last issue that I had not had a moving violation in a really, really long time. Um, and I think just given everything that I have to do in my day job, you find yourself literally running around from one meeting to the next. So you're in court, you pull up to a meter, you pay the meter expires. You get out, you're like, crap, I got a ticket, and then it just build up. And quite frankly, I haven't always made the amount of money that I make now. I'm blessed to have been able to get promotions, but those have happened in the very, recent past. And things pile up in a way that they shouldn't have. And so I've tried to be as transparent as possible in that. Owning your mistake, I think, is important. Not running away from that is important. But I don't think that, at least I have learned that it is not a mistake that is unique to me. Um, a lot of folks have reached out like, okay, so I have the same issue. Do they let you get on a payment plan? Like, do you know any of this? And, so I've been able to literally help people navigate through this process. And I think for me, what the accountability portion of it, what I did not, um, what was lost on me at the very beginning of it, because I think when you're being attacked, I guess, in this type of way, I think you become very defensive. It's just my general nature to be like, I'm a lawyer, Imma fight back, we're gonna do it. But I think what has helped is just me being a real person about it and saying, "This is a real issue. It's a real issue that I had. I addressed it. I've put things in place to prevent me from doing it again. I commit to doing it again. I understand that I have to gain folks' trust back, and I'm committed to doing that as well. Um, but none of it had stopped me from doing the hard work for community. Um, a parking ticket has never affected my passion for community and the work that I've done to help people's lives here in the community. It is a mistake. It is a mistake that will stay with me for the rest of my life, whether I want whether I want it to or not. But it's a part of what I told you. It's a part of the journey. To me, it's a necessary part of the journey. Whether it's to personally prepare me, and that I think I can say that without giving credit to the folks that broke the news. But for me, this entire journey, whatever I go through, I believe I'm purposed to go through it. And I will come out on the other side being better for it and being better capable to serve this community for it. So
Yep.
there's that.
Yeah.
I don't have any more
No,
parking
no,
tickets.
that's so one of the things that I wanted to mention that you had mentioned a little earlier on that Jesse has also mentioned that I appreciate is that while it's probably not ideal for either of you to like, I mean, I shouldn't say ideal, while it would probably be easier to run just unopposed to have anything. For me and for the voters, but something you both have mentioned is that you enjoy having another person in the ring because it kind of sharpens or you also get to hear what the minor differences are, whether I think he had mentioned, like, 2 of his issues were housing and affordability, 2 things that you also just mentioned. So it really allows the voters to have, I don't know, be able to look at what specific things and really, niche down, which is kind of a long-winded way of just saying that I think it's healthy that like you mentioned, that there are multiple people that are going in this.
Yeah, he and I are first-time candidates. We've never run before, brand new. I think that, again, I think iron sharpens iron. I think races only make you stronger, only make you more prepared. And I do think that in this time, you need someone prepared to really do the hard things, to have the hard conversations, to push the needle, and to think um, outside of the box and to be in community too. I think the other thing about races like this is you really get to know who the folks are, right? Like we are out in community, and I have talked to so many folks that didn't know who their council person were, had never had a person knock on their door who was actually running, right, for the seat that they were asking that person to vote for, having conversations and intimate conversations about what's going well and what's going not so well. And I think that there are folks in this city who love the city of Columbus. And there are folks in this city who feel like they haven't been able to get their footing and get their bearing. And I think it's important to hear from everybody about the things that we are doing well and the things that we are not doing well. And having worked in the city, I have my own ideas about the things that we're doing well and things that we're not doing well. But hearing it from real people is important. Being able to have that human touch and human engagement, I think, is integral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You a perfect lead up to my final questions, which are like which I'll see in a moment. But one of the things I did want to circle back on is like, let's say you do get the city council role. What do those first couple weeks, months look like?
Yeah, I think that those first couple weeks, months look like almost what I've been doing for the last decade. And it to me, I find myself in a lot of communities that have so much to offer, but don't get opportunity to have buy-in. What I would love to see, and I would love to see this embedded into how council engages with the community, is a more intimate engagement with the folks that live here. And not just the folks that can make it to City Hall and sign up for their 3 minutes to talk, before the days, but really the folks that are living here, entrenched in community and experiencing the ordinary life of a citizen here in the city of Columbus. Talking to them, working through the issues, and bringing those back in a real way, because I think that oftentimes I sit in rooms where it's a bunch of people talking about other people instead of talking to other people and making decisions about folks, and those folks are not part of the decision making. I want to get out into community and get deeply entrenched in community so folks can know who I am. We can build real rapport, because I think in order to move the needle, we are going to have to have a lot more buy-in than what we've seen historically. There are a lot of people that feel untouched, unengaged, and unhelped by the city of Columbus, but they're willing to. They will sit down and have a conversation with you all day, and it won't take long for you to understand kind of what could have moved the needle for them in their moment of need, and low-hanging fruit that I think we could pull on right away. So, I would love to be able to spend the first few months of being on council, being in community. And I hope that I could continue that, right? Like, that would be my goal, to not just be a part of community when it immediately benefits me, like when I'm running for office, right? But to be in it and to continue that and to build a regular cadence so that people started to expect me to be there. They know I'm going to be there, right? Or somebody who can get to me quickly will be there. So that's what I want to do for the first few months. What I also would really like to do is, so on the ballot with city council is also the school board, is also a bond package. $1.9 billion bond package that is going to affect services for the city of Columbus, but also $500 million of that is going to be reserved for affordable housing in our community. Um, I, day one, will probably get entrenched in what that plan looks like, because I think we need to have a strategic plan. I think that we need to be, I think equity should be at the forefront of what that looks like. And when I talk about equity, I mainly talk about how our neighborhoods are made up, and a healthy housing continuum. And so I've had the fortune and honor of sitting on the continuum of care for Franklin County in the city of Columbus for a few years, and we've seen kind of where our continuum is in the city of Columbus, from shelter, from unhoused, so being literally on the land, all the way to being, self-sufficient from a housing perspective, and the different types of housing you could potentially have. And so we talk about, transitioning from being on the land to being in shelter to being in transitional workforce housing to being in a single family home or an apartment or whatever. And our biggest bottleneck is the shelter. And so the shelter system is keeping more and more families, and they're keeping them longer, almost twice or three times as long as we've historically seen families are staying, because we don't have that workforce transitional housing. And so in talking through a lot of this, obviously you have to build more, duh, right? I think that's a duh. If you're not saying that, then you just don't get it. Like, you absolutely have to. But I think it's the what you build, right? For whom you build, and also where you build it. So I think about some of the seniors in the Milo Grogan community who I've talked to, folks who have been there the entirety of their lives. Folks that will literally stay in that home till that home is falling apart just to stay in that community because there's no senior housing there, right? There's not enough senior housing. And I see senior housing being built, far north side, far east side. And when you think about being in a community and having given your life and your life's work, and just also just knowing your neighbor, right? And knowing that maybe that young person next door always checks on me at least once a week. So as I age and my friends are also aging and maybe passing away, I at least know that I've built this relationship and with this rapport with this person. And so really thinking about multi-generational neighborhoods where when you need a single family home, you have it. Where you're aging out of that home and you need senior housing, you have it, but you don't have to go 30, 12, 20 miles away from your community to get it, right? Um, how are we looking at the makeup of each of our neighborhoods so that we have multi-generational opportunities, so that the young people have what they need. So when you want to have a family and you might be, expanding and growing, you have what you need there. And you really could stay in communities for the long term. You're not getting priced out of those communities. Thinking about property taxes and how the city could be helpful in that space as well. Um, there are some levers that the city could pull to provide property tax relief, and this is not to absolve the state from its responsibility in that space, very much so, but I do think that there are some things that we could do to help. So those are, like, quick, like, immediate things, I think. When we think about our technology and really, like, how much translation support we have for communities, even really now, when you're seeing so many of our immigrant neighbors being attacked, so many in fear of living out their lives fully in communities. I think what's incumbent upon Columbus is to live out our values. So we say we are a welcoming city. What does that mean though? Truly, right? Do we have enough translation support? I would venture to say we don't. And I tell you that because I work in a neighborhood called Wedgwood a lot. And there are thousands of individuals that are from Somalia, but they're Bantu, which means they speak Mai, which is not a written language, so it's not ethnic Somali. Um, and they tell you every day we talk to them, and they're like, "Yeah, we are still trying and struggling to navigate systems here in the city." So imagine if ICE is also here, but you don't even ride the COTA bus because you don't know where you're going, right? You're staying at home. You're fearful of living your life out. Um, I think there are things that those kinds of things I think we just have to do. You have to have the will to do it. We know exactly who interfaces with the city, when, and for what. All you got to do is take a look at it. Do we have enough language support, translation support? And if we don't, let's get it, right? WhatsApp. I remember reaching out to our Department of Technology years ago because we use Evertree. Have you ever gotten a text message from the city of Columbus? Maybe once or twice. All right, I get them a lot because I'm on all these call trees. But when we're trying to mass communicate with individuals, you do it through a text messaging system. I think it's called Evertree. I might get the name wrong, so don't charge it charge it to my head. Yes, because my brain doesn't work at this moment. Um, I remember asking them like, "Hey, is this compatible with WhatsApp?" Because I'm in communities a lot, and that's literally how they communicate through WhatsApp. Using the Wedgwood community again, like, they were like, "We can members of our community can translate for one another. We can use a video. We'll put it in WhatsApp." That's literally how we communicate. And then learning that, like, this is a actual global mechanism for communicating. Like, the way we communicate as citizens of the United States is actually not the way the world communicates with one another. So as we continue to expand and become more of a global city, because I think we've been one for a while, but really start to live out those values, how are we modernizing our technology to support that, to support different types of communication? Um, how are we working with our school board too? I would love to be able to implement regular meetings with the board and council, put together a master plan. What does the ci how is the city partnering with our school board for the long term, right? We don't have it. Um, I guess there are a lot of things that I really would love to do. My campaign has been centered around affordability from a housing perspective, building a healthy housing continuum. That's what's going to drive down costs. The healthy continuum is necessary to even think about more creative things that we could be doing in the housing space. Because this whatever this fix is has to be sustainable over time, right? And I think that, folks will have a lot of ideas, but we have a problem that we have to tackle first, and that is building. But again, being intentional about the build. Where are we building? What types of housing are we building? Are they truly affordable for the people that live here? Once we catch up, because we're thousands of units behind already, and then every year we get more thousands of units behind, right? So there is going to be a level of shovels in the ground that have to continuously be in the ground. But understanding where they're going, is it equitable? Is every part of town receiving the types of housing that it needs to build this healthy housing continuum? Um, Public safety. There right now are citizens that are organizing for this alternative response to nonviolent mental health crises, um, that I know is supported by a lot of people, by me, even by officers that I talk to. Um, Over 50% maybe, at least, yeah, over 50% of our calls for service to the Division of Police are for nonviolent and or mental health crises. Imagine the capacity that is given to officers to address violent crime if they're not having to respond. That's just a practical solution, right? But it's also a more human, people first solution too. Um, it is important for me to make sure that people are not dying at the hands of police in our community unnecessarily. Accountability is a part of that. Transparency in our police force is a part of that. But also thinking practically about what they're doing, what they should be doing, what they're tooled and capable and have the competencies to do, and then what they're not. I think that mental health crises responses to that are better suited for social workers, clinical professionals who deal in that space every day, who understand the humanity of the folks who are in need and understand how to respond to that. Um, we have to fully integrate it into our public safety response system. And right now, the city has a pilot. We love pilots. I would love to be able to work to bring that into to move that into the executing phase, right? Implementation. Bring that into implementation. Um, and I think we're there. I think they're and talking to a lot of folks, even folks who are leading the organizing for this, talking to folks in the division of police, talking to folks who represent social workers in government. I think we're there. We just have to have the will to get there, and a lot of it is funding. And I think during this time, you're seeing a lot of just fear around what to put money into, what money do we need to save so that we can be able to get ourselves through this funding crisis that we're going to see. Um, and so funding mandates are not necessarily smiled upon because you want to have flexibility in a budget to be able to ebb and flow. I think we can get there. And I think really during this time in any community, particularly in any government, when you hear a value, you should be able to attach that value to a line item in a budget because that really tells you where the values are. Um, it's not sexy, but I think the city is in need of a little bit of an audit. And so for fear of sounding like a member of a party that I'm not a part of, I think you could do that. I think you do it in a people first way. I've seen a lot of policies and procedures that have been around for a very, very long time. And I don't know if they've been looked at to test their efficacy. Um,
I think for whatever it's worth, I think that that is something that a lot of people like to see, though, is to know where the dollars like go and are they being used
and I think
efficiently.
that's
I
a
don't
part
think
of
that's a left or
transparency.
right thing.
No,
Yeah.
I just think that it's been hyper politicized, right? And so, and whenever, honestly, whenever you're not in community, and this happens in the public safety space too, things become very difficult to talk about because you're scared of the political consequences. But for what it's worth, as many folks as I've talked to this about in the community, I think they're in agreement with you, right?
Yeah.
Where's the money going? Does it work? Are we reaching the metrics that we intend to reach with this program? We oftentimes you hear it a lot. Columbus is resource rich, connection poor, right? So we have all these resources. We're giving away a lot of money to a lot of organizations, to a lot of groups. We have a lot of processes and procedures that have been in place for a long time. Where then are the results? How are we measuring those results on a consistent basis? I told you I came from the corporate world. Like audits were literally a part of your daily life. You knew they were coming, you knew when they were coming, you knew how to prepare for them. We should have that, right? One of my friends in this space always says, like, people get comfortable saying we move at the speed of government. And I don't think we should be comfortable saying that because what government does affects people's lives. And if we can move quicker on something, if we can be more efficient on something, we ought to try to do that. If we can have the best technology, we ought to try to have it. Um, we got to change our mindset, right? Like we can go from good to great. And I think it just has to be those of us who are in community and have the will to do the things that we know we need to do to get us to the place we know we need to go.
Yeah, which leads up into one of my final questions for you. I always ask what people are excited and concerned about when looking at the future of Columbus, and I feel like you've hit on your concerns a lot, but you led right into it. So when you look at the future of Columbus, what excites you? What concerns you?
I'm super excited. So I, you know, a lot of folks like back in the day, they would be like, oh, slow Lumbus, right? They would call Columbus slow Lumbus. It's, Cowtown. We're not that anymore. We are becoming a place that people want to come for entertainment, for travel, to live. Our former mayor would always say like, we want to be the best place to live, work, and raise a family. That was like the thing. But you're actually starting to see that. You're starting to see Columbus become a place where folks want to come and also want to stay. Um, I'm excited to see us build our brand, right? Separate and apart from OSU, right? Separate and apart from being the capital city where government lives. But really, like, what is Columbus? Who are we? And I think part of that is really leaning into all of the cultural hubs that we have, the diversity of our community, making sure that we are showing that making sure that folks feel comfortable living out their authentic selves here in our community. I'm super excited about that. I'm excited about what I'm hearing that's going to happen near Columbus State, where we're going to be building hubs for small entrepreneurs to work out their artistic vision and food, like all of the things that Columbus is just well known for, expanding that and really building true community and branding ourselves in that space. I'm super excited about that. Um, I think growth is exciting. Having more people here is exciting. Um, I'm excited about being a part of it. I'm concerned about the equity of that growth. Does everybody have an opportunity to participate in it? I want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate in the growth. What does that look like? How are we leaning into the jobs that we're bringing to our community? What are they paying? Are they livable wages, right? Like, do folks still have to work 2 jobs just to put food on their table? I think there are folks that still have to do that. Um, I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about folks that are living in places they don't deserve to live in. Um, I'm concerned about people that are afraid to be their authentic selves for fear of retribution or retaliation or violence, period. Um, there are still some communities that, while we are seeing overall decrease in crime, are not seeing that same decrease in crime in their communities. I'm concerned about that. I know, though, that we are a community that can solve it, and that's what excites me about Columbus. I've seen folks and it's this weird kind of distrust of corporate, private, but I've seen private institutions step up and walk alongside our government to help real people, to fill those gaps. We're gonna have to lean into that a little bit, and I think you can do that ethically. I think you can do that transparently. I think that you can reward the businesses that want to pour back into our community and hold accountable the businesses that don't, right? But in this time where the federal government is divesting its money, the state house is doubling down on that, the private sector, we're gonna have to lean into that to step up. We're gonna have to lean into the idea of real neighborhoods again. Being a neighbor to one another, check in. What do they need, right? Do we need to come together to bring food to our community? We're doing that now, I think. Right now in trying to prepare for what November 1st may or may not look like. Um, but I've seen the best of Columbus, and I think that if we stay true and hold true to the values of our community, that we really can be, I think the mayor calls it a model city. I think we can be. I really do. I'm excited about it. People like you who I get to meet every day. Um, other people who I've met running for office who really care about their communities, care about the people who they live and do life with. Um, I know that if we add neighbor back to neighborhood, we'll have everything that we need. We have literally everything that we need in this community. We just have to lean into it. Um,
Okay. As is the final question, in Columbus, your favorite places to eat, drink, hang out.
oh, all right. So I have to plug this because my uncle just opened up a restaurant. It's in District 7. It's on Lynn Street. It's my neighborhood bar, neighborhood restaurant. It's called Soul to Go. I love it. Soul to Go Cafe, best fried chicken wings, collard greens, mac and cheese, all the soul food staples. They also have a drink called soul tea. It's called soul tea. I tell people that they named it after me. I have no idea who they named it after. But it's almost like a green tea shot made into a cocktail. Yeah, it's real
Sounds
good.
good.
It's real if you like sweet, it's really good. Um, that's my favorite place right now to eat and to drink. Um, to hang. So I am a 80s baby, so 80s born, 90s raised, which means Easton will always have a special place in my heart because I remember when you had a curfew. I literally remember wanting to go to the movies, but you were under 16, so having to go with an adult. Um, Still very much there. I think it's a great place to just be around community and that indoor-outdoor vibe, that feel is awesome. In the district, love hanging out at Penn's. Um, I love Topiary Park. I live very close to Topiary Park, walking distance from Topiary Park. I think it's great. The main library also. So many places.
Yeah.
So many places in the city of Columbus, but when you get a chance, try Soul to Go. You come with me. I'll take you.
Sounds
I'll
great.
take you.
Sounds great. I'll
I'll
probably
take
get a
you.
discount too. So no,
Sure.
maybe.
All right. Well, listen, I am a frequent buyer. They have a frequent buyer program and a family and friends program. So yes. Yes.
All right, Tiara, where can people find you?
People can find our campaign at tiaraross.com. You can reach out to us at info@tiaraross.com. You can find us on Instagram at Tiara N Ross. You can find us on Facebook at Tiara N Ross. Very easy to find. Reach out. We're having a lot of fun. We have I have a rally coming up on Sunday. It's a Black Woman for Ross rally, which I'm super excited about. We're gonna have it at the J.H. Ross Community Center, which is named after my granddad, in Milo Grogan. Super excited about it. We're at the polls. Early vote has already started. So you'll see us out there volunteering, getting the word out about this campaign, just helping voters navigate that space. Some people like going to vote, some people don't. So having a friendly face, having information available is important. So we'll be there Saturday and Sunday, party at the polls, and souls to the polls on Sunday. It's a lot going on. We're excited. We're excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is super cool, guys. Super cool space.